Okay, welcome to Teach Online TV. My name is Tyler Basu, and I'm here with James Martell, and we are going to be chatting about starting a podcast so that you can build your audience, get your message out there, and ultimately enroll more students into your online course. Now, a little bit about James. He actually got started with affiliate marketing back in 1999. He shortly after that started the Affiliate Buzz podcast. This is the longest running podcast in the affiliate marketing space with over 400 episodes. So you've been doing this over 12 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
That's a long time. I think you've been podcasting longer than it's actually been called podcasting.
That's actually true. When we launched it, the word hadn't been coined yet. So we actually called it at the time an audio newsletter.
An audio newsletter, right? Okay, and you've got a second show now as well, Podcasting Mastery, which is a podcast, and you've got a course as well. And so you teach people how to get started and how to succeed as podcasters. So those are the highlights. But if you could just kind of take us back to the beginning of your journey, how did you get into the online marketing world and specifically into starting your first podcast?
Yeah, that does take us back. It takes us back to 1999, and I was living in the Valley in a little town called Abbotsford with my wife and 4 kids, and that's about 40 minutes out of Metro Vancouver, of course, on British Columbia's west coast. And literally a buddy of mine come wandering into my home office one day and said, "Hey, let me show you what I'm doing." And he had built a little website, and he was referring customers to a company down in California named address.com, and they were paying him $4.35 for every lead that he sent them. I thought, well, that's interesting. I said, "How's it going?" He says, "Well, I'm making about 30 grand a month." Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's like, okay, Spidey sense is on high now. So he told me that, and he knew at the time we were starving to death. I had a business in the telecom company, or the telecom industry, and it was at the end of deregulation, or the big boom in deregulation. So a lot of the money had gone out of it. As the long distance rates plummeted, so did the profits for companies like ours. So we were looking for something else. We needed another business, and the beautiful thing about the telecom business was, because it's residually based, meaning you have a customer one month, they're going to pay you next month, the month after that. It had a really nice recurring revenue stream, and I really had come to enjoy that. So when it was time to, when I seen that dwindling away, I needed another outlet to be able to do something similar. And when he showed me the internet, and he showed me about affiliate programs and about the ability to build a website that could generate revenue on an ongoing basis, I was like, okay, would you mind showing me how to do this? And he did. And for the next 6 months, anytime I needed some help from him, he would let me peek over his shoulder. I could give him a call, and he'd help me out. And long story short, we built a business. By the end, that was 99. So by the end of 2001, I'd started a class in a little town called New Westminster that you'd be very familiar with, where we were teaching other people how to do the same with the little night school style training course.
Okay.
And literally that took off, and to the point where it was starting to pull me away from my main business, which was affiliate marketing. And I decided, you know what, I'd like to teach people how to do this, so maybe I could write a book. So I ended up writing a book called The Affiliate Marketer's Handbook, and it was one of the first ebooks out there. And it was a 267-page manual, and we charged $250 Canadian for it, or 167 US, and we started marketing this book online. And for the first 6 months, the book didn't sell hardly at all. I figured, okay, here we go. We got a failure here. But all of a sudden, a few industry people picked up on it and wrote some reviews on it, and literally sales took off. So what happened there is that started to produce all kinds of students for us. And with these students, they wanted some attention. And by the end of 2002 and into mid-2003, we literally had thousands of students all over the world who had bought the handbook. And one day I'm sitting there chatting with a buddy of mine who was handling the marketing for me. He says, "You know what? I really wish we would have recorded that. Your students would have loved it." And he goes, "Give me a minute here." says, leave this with me. I'm going to come back in about a week or so. I got an idea. So a week later, he comes back to me with this idea that why don't we do a twice a month audio newsletter? We'll call it the Affiliate Buzz. It'll be the good, the bad, and the ugly of what's going on in your affiliate business. And it'll be just a great way for you to connect with your students. Won't take a lot of time. Figure we could do it probably in an hour every couple of weeks. So we'll do twice monthly. And we did. And we didn't give it away for free. We said, look, why don't we charge $10 a month for it? And it says, okay, that'd be great. Let's do that. And we did. And within a matter of a short period of time, I don't really recall how long, it didn't take long, we had between 500 and 600 students paying us $10 a month for this little audio newsletter we were putting together. It was great.
Okay, cool. That's pretty exciting. And at what point did it become podcasting then? And when did the model change to then, having like a free podcast that people could tune into? When did that start happening? And then maybe just bring us up to speed on what your podcasting business looks like today.
Sure. So back then, as things grew, and we were selling more and more books, we really kind of stalled out around the 500 or 600 student mark because people come in, they do the course, and then they fall away and they no longer needed it. And I wanted a way to build out a larger audience. So I decided around 2006, I would think, somewhere in there, that area, that I'm going to take a chance here. I'm going to open this up for free. We're going to cancel the subscriptions, open this up for free, and use the Affiliate Buzz as a method to build out our list, to build out our audience, which we did. And it was a bit of a gamble because it was real nice to have a $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 revenue stream coming in automatically every month. Yeah. But I was looking at the bigger picture, thinking if I had thousands of listeners instead of hundreds, that we'd have a much broader reach and we could probably do a whole bunch more. And turns out we did. So to bring us current, Affiliate Buzz, we still recorded every week on now it's called cranberry.fm. We were picked up by Webmaster Radio in 99 and they've rebranded recently. And we record the show faithfully every Thursday, and it happens to be Thursday. So in 2.5 hours, we'll be recording the Affiliate Buzz. And in January of this year, 2016, I decided to launch a new podcast in tandem with the original called Podcasting Mastery. Kind of catch this wave of podcasters coming on board with a new show where I'm interviewing other successful podcasters who could share their story and their journey and how they're monetizing their show and how they're building out their audience and all the things that we need to do to become successful as a podcaster. So that's the two of them to date.
Cool. So you've kind of evolved then from charging a subscription for an audio newsletter, back when you were first getting into this. And for you, it was a way to just continue to provide value to your customers, all these people that had bought your book. But now that's shifted. So now you're putting out free content, very topic specific, but it's helping you build an audience, build a list. And then you've got like your consulting, your online course and things like that. And I'm guessing that most of your customers are coming from your audience that you are putting out that free content, right? That's true.
I would say very closely to 80% of our new clients come in from our podcast. And we offer a variety of services to them, and that's the way we get the word out. And we basically, if you take podcasting as an example, or affiliate marketing for that matter, or any topic, any industry, if you're out there providing good value and you're great information and you're educating your audience, your followers about the industry. In my mind, Podcasting Mastery is not about selling our services. Podcasting Mastery is about selling the listeners on the idea that podcasting is an extremely viable way to develop new clients and customers for your business, because it gives you such a broad reach and such a much larger reach than you could ever reach blogging or in pretty much any other form of marketing that I've been involved over the last 15 and 16 years. Podcasting has been the strategy for us to really build out an audience and really be able to penetrate into markets and then take that audience, educate them, and then using email, drop them offers on our products and services, and we've closed literally probably in the neighborhood, I figured it out not too long ago, somewhere around $2 million in direct and indirect sales just from the podcast alone over the years.
Wow, that's impressive. So you brought up an important point, actually two important points. One is that you're getting those people who are listening to your podcast onto an email list, and so it's through email that you're selling. You're not selling directly on the show. The show is
exactly. Okay. That's one of the questions I get. Well, how in the heck are you ever going to monetize a podcast? They can't click on anything. They can't buy from the podcast. Unlike a blog where they can click on a link and migrate through to a shopping cart and make a purchase. You can't really do that in a podcast. Well, that's true. But I don't recommend doing that anyways. I recommend using the podcast to build out that audience. And as we said, then if you've got a new product or service, sure, you may want to announce it there, but then you develop a nice little 3, 4, 5 email follow-up series that gives them a clear offer. Now they know you, they like you, they trust you because they're your listeners. So you've already got a relationship with them. If you understand who they are and they're your ideal client and you know what their problems are and you're offering them a real solution, then you get a really high conversion rate as well. Mm-hmm. So it's really a nice little 1-2 punch when you've got the podcast to build the audience, nurture the audience, let them get to know you, you get to know them, and then offer them the products and services that are going to help. It's really through email. It's really a winning way to go.
Perfect. And I do want to jump into that in a bit more detail in a sec, but let's just take a step back and compare putting audio content out there versus other forms of content. I mean, you mentioned people can write articles. We know that we can put videos out there. And so for online course creators, if they want to market their course, a great way to do that is to get some content online about their topic, right? So that their target audience can find them, can consume their content, can build up a bit of trust before joining their newsletter or buying their course. And there are different ways you can put content. You can write articles, you can do your own blog, you can write for other blogs, you can do podcasts, you can do videos. What do you think are some of the top reasons why somebody should consider audio content? What are some of the benefits of making audio content versus those other types of content?
I'd say the number one reason it's so personal, that we can never underestimate the power of the human voice. When people get to hear you, there's a whole different connection than reading your words on a page. And we know how powerful words on a page can be, but now you add in the human voice and you've got, a really step up from words on the page, which is what I found. So that's number one. Number two, it gives you a broader reach. So let's take a blog, for example. I'm a huge fan of blogging, and I'm not saying don't blog, definitely blog. But a blog, you primarily post your article on your website.
That's right.
And then maybe you share it in social media and maybe get shared around a little bit. Mm-hmm. Whereas with the podcast, you've got a much larger target audience because of services and tools like iTunes and iHeartRadio and Spreaker and Stitcher.
All those directories.
All of these directories that have massive audiences built into them. You take a little podcasting directory like Spreaker, and if somebody was to head over to Spreaker, and that's speaker with an R, and take a look at the stats even for the Affiliate Buzz and my podcast over there, it's been 55,000 downloads over there on a little independent directory that I just happen to post my show on, that I don't promote. It's not on my radar screen. It's just out there, fed every week with the live episode or the recorded episode, so people can consume it. So podcasting gives you the ability to create the same type of content as a blog, only in audio form, and then through the power of an RSS feed these directories where there are massive audiences. iTunes is the granddaddy, of course, and they've got somewhere in the neighborhood of well over 1 billion subscribers to podcasts alone. Yeah. A lot of people think of iTunes as music, and they're huge in music. They've got 500 million subscribers, if you can imagine, but they've got over double that for podcasters. So these are audiences that you can get in front of, but only if you have audio content or a podcast.
Right.
Because they don't accept blogs, they don't accept the other type forms of content. So it really gives you an opportunity to dig in there. So, and one other major benefit is competition, or less competition. Whereas they say there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 450 million active blogs online.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Try to get your heads around that.
Yeah.
Compared to somewhere around 225, 250,000 podcasts, which sounds like a lot, but when you compare it to 450 million blogs, it's a drop in the bucket. So you can get in front of audiences way quicker, way faster, with far, far, far less competition, and you can get some real traction in a hurry.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And, out of that amount of podcasts that do exist already, a lot of them are in the business and the marketing space already. But if you were to go and like search for a topic, maybe your course is on something really hyper specific, like how to use Adobe Photoshop or how to play the guitar, or, something outside of that realm of internet marketing. Because as you know, a lot of marketers have realized how powerful podcasting is, and so they have podcasts. But there are a lot of untouched topics, a lot of untouched niches. Would you agree with that?
That's totally true. So if you dig in and you go look at your topic, whatever it may be, and if it's really niche based or even not so much, you're going to find if you do a Google search for your topic and look at the blogs, you're probably going to have thousands of competitors, more than likely.
Yeah, for sure.
If you do a search in the podcasting directories, like iTunes with a billion plus subscribers, you're going to find that at the most, you may have a handful of competitors. In a lot of cases, and I encourage your listeners to go take a peek, you're going to have very few competitors, and in a lot of cases, none. Mm-hmm. That's just the nature of where we're at with it. And that's the interesting thing about it. It reminds me of Google. I remember when I discovered Google back in December of 2001. Somebody had sent me a link to Google and said, hey, check this website out. It's pretty cool. So I click. First time I land on google.com, pure search engine at the time, not a lot of other things going on. Do a search. Hey, this is clean. I like this. This is great. And then we learned how to optimize for it. And we had about a 4 or 5 year run there with very little competition comparable to what we see today. Mm-hmm. Where podcasting is the same, where we have these massive audiences of people who have bought into the idea of audio content. They love audio content, but there's not a lot of people producing it.
Right.
And like you said, if you've got a course or you've got a product or service that is based around a niche, go look at the podcasting space, and I think you're going to be stunned and amazed at how little competition there really is.
Awesome. Now, so let's say somebody they do that research and they decide, you know what, there's an opportunity for me here to start a podcast, to get some of my content out there, to build an audience. What's the next step? Is it complicated to start a podcast? Do we need a whole studio? I mean, what do we need in terms of like equipment and software to get going?
That's a great question. One of the things I like to remind my students is you can start a podcast usually with the equipment you already have. And that was true in my case. I mean, I've got a desktop computer, I've got a laptop. I'm sure most have either one of those or both, or a tablet or a smartphone. And with any one of those, you can literally start a podcast. You need to get yourself a decent headset with a decent microphone, something but not too expensive. You can take a look at the one I'm wearing or what you're wearing. Mm-hmm. This was like $45 or something. So we're not talking a lot of money here. We just want something that's decent sound quality. And then you're pretty much, as far as equipment goes, you're pretty much set up. Software-wise, there's some pretty simple ways to handle the software and the recording as well. Free tools like Audacity by SourceForge.
Yeah,
is a great little free audio recorder where you can do a little bit of editing, and that's the thing with all of this. It seems so. Podcasting is weird because video kind of hopped over top of us. If you think back to the early days, it was text, then images, and you would think the next logical big piece of content would have been audio. But no, with the advent of iTunes in 2005, video took off, and then audio kind of came on later. So people have this look at audio that it's complicated and it's hard, whereas it's so much easier than video. It's so much easier than a lot of ways of creating content.
Yeah.
So it's really not complicated.
Okay, cool. And so in terms of marketing a podcast, I mean, getting on all those directories is great because people who are searching for topics and shows on those directories like iTunes and Spreaker, they can find you just by searching for you. But is there anything that you're doing any go-to marketing strategies that you personally use? So when you publish your latest episode, how do you get the word out a little bit?
I am relentless about the email list, and you mentioned that earlier. I am relentless. I love the directories and definitely want to have my show in there, and they're in all the directories. But to me, the biggest thing is building out my email list, and whether it be, I'm actually about to start a podcast for a friend of mine here locally who owns a whale watching company, and I have another friend locally who owns a pub, and both of them, I'm managing their marketing for them. Yeah. Because Andrew, in that case, is a whale watching guy. He doesn't know how to market, and Rod owns a pub. Mm-hmm. So what the first thing I went and did for both of them is I bought a couple of big fish bowls. And they're like, okay. I says, and we're going to collect people's email addresses from now on, and I'm going to drive you crazy about collecting these email addresses. I guarantee you're going to hate me in a while. That's all I'm going to care about is how many email addresses did we get today. Yeah. And I've been like that with them. And with Andrew and the whale watching, we were up to like 2,100 subscribers now. And he loves it.
Collecting business cards.
Because he thought that we're going to do it. He hadn't really figured out how we're going to do the marketing. And I said, if we could get to 3,000 email addresses and put together a podcast so we can talk to your audience and let them know all about whale watching, that we're going to have a win. And for the last 3 months, we've got a little fishbowl down on the pier, and we collect their names and their email addresses, and in they come. And when we kicked off the season in April, we figured if we could get one full boat for whale watching on Saturday and one full boat for whale watching on Sunday, and then do a few harbor cruises during the week, we'd be golden. But the money is in the whale watching. Mm-hmm. So fast forward to today with only a couple thousand email addresses, we did 3 whale watching tours on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. We're booked up every day of the week now, and it's turned into a proverbial gold mine. And same for the pub. So that's kind of the brick and mortar side. So don't forget about the offline space. Or if you're speaking at a conference, one of my salespeople spoke at a conference for me last weekend, and we offered them up a couple of goodies, one of my books and a few little things that if they would give us their name and their email address and join our list, then we would give them these what we call lead magnets, opt-in offers. Mm-hmm. And so there's a couple of ways that we build it up, but I'm such a big fan of the emails, and I don't really care what kind of industry it is. I think if you can just come up with a strategy, something simple, a fishbowl on the counter, or an offer if you happen to be out speaking, that just whatever you need to do to get those email addresses, you'll be golden.
Great advice. So how are you getting your podcast listeners to get onto an email? So are you telling them visit your website? Are you offering some kind of free gifts or free resources or anything like that? Because as you know, when somebody's listening to a podcast, they could be in their car, they could be at the gym. They're not necessarily in a place to join your newsletter. So how do you get them to go to your website later on and give them a reason to do so?
That's a good question. Before we even actually launched, the first thing that I did is I put together 4 or 5 reports. Okay. Put together a checklist called the Easy, How to Start Your Podcast in 21 Easy Steps. It's a little 4-page checklist. Yeah. I've got another one, 37 Reasons to Start a Podcast. Another one would be 12 Audio Marketing Ideas. So I've got these little free giveaways that I offer up to our listeners when they're on the show, and I get a pretty good idea who they are and what they're looking for, so we know what they need. And if you think about it, you get a chance to talk with them for 30 minutes, and they're listening. You're talking with a guest, and you're talking primarily about things that are really of huge interest to the listener, though. So then, towards the end of the show, to offer them up a giveaway or two. I find it works really, really well. And then I just send them to a landing page where they can go and pick it up. So if it's the checklist, they just go to podcastingmastery.com/checklist. Yeah. And then it drops them on the landing page. They can enter their name and email address, and away we go.
Perfect. So on a podcast episode, you might have a guest on, you might do an episode on your own, and then you're mentioning those free resources. So it's not like a sales pitch. It's not like somebody's listening to a podcast episode and they're being sold something. You're giving a lot of value up front, and then to supplement that value or to complement that value, you're offering a free resource. You've got a landing page set up where they can go, they can enter their email, and then boom, you send them the resource, and you've got them on your newsletter, and you can keep in touch with them from that point forward. So that's fantastic. Now, James, I've got just a couple questions for you, and then we'll wrap up. But a lot of our audience are online course creators, and so they have a lot of content inside of their course. And one of their concerns is, if I do a podcast, am I giving away all my content on my podcast? How do I share, or how do I tie it to my course without, giving away that incentive for somebody to actually buy the course? I mean, how do you balance having free content, having paid content? How do you manage the overlap, or how do you kind of organize what you're going to put out there for free? Do you have any tips or suggestions for somebody who's...
Sure. That's a great question. And I've been creating courses since I've created my first course in 2001 in the office there, which became the original ebook for our business. And it's always been a bit of a tug of war. What do I do? Do I give it away? How much do I hold back? And I learned over the years that I don't hold anything back.
Okay.
If I happen to be wanting to talk about something, I just share it with them, because it's not so much the knowledge that you're sharing on the podcast that you're giving away, because they're learning. But you compare a podcast to where you're talking about something that's really interesting to your listener, and they're loving it. But it's fragmented. It's fractured from the actual flow of the course.
Right.
So they're listening to your podcast and they're saying, this is really interesting. And they may be in their car, they may be at the gym or commuting somewhere, and they're listening to you, and you're teaching them. So they're getting to know you, and they're getting to understand that you know what you're talking about. And this sounds really interesting, and I should actually do this. That's a whole different thing to now take that knowledge from what they just heard in a podcast and then go apply it. Whereas with the course, as we all know, you sit down and you start at lesson number 1 and you methodically go through it. And then you go through lesson number 2. So it's Napoleon Hill said it in Think and Grow Rich. It's the organization of the knowledge. It's not the knowledge, it's the organization of the knowledge, and then the delivery of that knowledge to an audience. So I'm never shy to share.
Okay.
But also, I'm usually interviewing guests, so I don't really use the podcast so much as a teaching tool of what's in the course. Right. I use the podcast as a tool to build a relationship with the listener and to pour out to them, because the guests, as you know, the guests do a lot of the heavy lifting, because they're the one bringing the content to that actual episode, and you get to talk to them. So then when it's time for them to say, okay, it's time for me to take this course because I've been listening, I'm ready. Now they know what you're talking about. So the sales barriers drop and the sale becomes much easier.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So don't be afraid to give away some of your best content or interview guests. I mean, you don't necessarily have to come up with the content for a podcast episode yourself. You can have an expert in your industry or on your topic as a guest on your show. You can ask them questions. But the bottom line is, people buy a course because they want the information organized, they want it sequential. Maybe there's video training, maybe there's quizzes that they take. So it's a lot more interactive. It's not just audio. So I can see why having maybe the same content in a course as on a podcast, why the course still has value, and the podcast isn't going to take away from that in any way. So thanks for clearing that up with us. Well, James, this has been a pleasure. You have a ton of experience with podcasting. You've been doing it for a long time, and you've shared a ton of great insights. So I really appreciate that. And I know our audience is going to get some value from this. If they want to get in touch with you or learn more about you, where is the best place that we can direct people?
The best place is to just head over to podcastingmastery.com and maybe listen to a few of our episodes. We have some amazing guests that share they just share everything about what they're doing, about how they've made podcasts successful, and they're just wonderful people, and they're great interviews, and also a good example of an interview like you do so well, Tyler. If they're thinking about maybe doing this themselves, they'll get some good ideas from that as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, James, thank you so much. Thanks again for your time, and I wish you all the best.
Tyler, thank you so much as well. It's been great. Thanks for having me on.